Hello inmates, I am Warden Kinglink and I'll be telling you how it is here at the Escapists 2 prison. Of course, this is my last look and review of the Escapists 2 and I expect you to listen up. I'm only going to say this once, there is a spoiler warning. I'm going to go into how the first prison works, I will explain a couple of the hidden escapes. This is for your benefit, not mine. Now line up, today we're going to be doing bunk inspections for... Alright. I wish I could do that for the whole review, but honestly I can't. However, I am going to go discuss those escapes. You're going to see 2 escapes here, and I am going to try to do this quickly because this is a longer review. There's a lot of information that I want to get out and discuss in this game. I am going to go into detail and tell you what I really think about the Escapists 2. This is part of my series on the early unlocks of the Humble Monthly Bundle for August 2018. If you haven't looked yet, there's already a review of A Hat in Time and one upcoming of Conan Exiles in the next 4 days. If you're interested in any of those 3 games, check my reviews and then check Humble Bundle. They have them for $12 as long as it's before August 3rd. So, the Escapists 2 starts with a simple tutorial mission. In fact, if you watch my first look, you can see me play through it, and it gives the impression of a rather interesting puzzle/story game. You can find everything to escape in desks, and there's usually a suitable time to run away and get out. It teaches you most of the rules of the game, but in reality it's nothing like the rest of the game. When the tutorial gives you all the items you need to get in the game quickly forgets that and makes you have to hunt for randomized loots in randomized locations and use a shop system to allow you to buy items. The fun in the tutorial is a bit missing in the rest of the game, however the first prison seems like a good place to go in depth. Now I'm going to show 2 escapes here, and I might not make the second one complete, in fact I probably won't, but we'll talk about the 3 possible escapes from the first real prison. Given enough time, I could look at a transport prison, but I just don't have time for that right now. However, as you watch me play, check out the graphics. They're rather good for the NES style that they're hoping to capture here, and I actually do think the game works well with its 8-bit style, and for that, kudos should be given. At the same time, it also simplifies the game system just a little bit, so while you can track the progress, it doesn't go much deeper than that. For instance, you can knock out bricks in the wall, and it gives an accurate depiction of that, but there's a lot of items here, and the majority of them are just in the inventory system, and the combat with them is barely seen or doesn't feel that different. For instance, the difference between a mop and a broom, relatively the same thing. Same thing with even a mop and a bat, they're just a slightly different look to it. And also a little bit of distance. So, the tutorial makes the game feel like a story-driven puzzle game, but in reality the game is more about an open world, or really open prison escape game. You have to procure the goods that you need and come up with a plan, and then execute that plan to get out on your own or with other people. So let's talk about that first prison. The fact is there's 3 ways out. There's getting to the edge of the map, which is almost always an option on every prison. There's 2 special escapes. One is getting out with the film crew, which is the way you're going to see me escape at the first time, and the second is mailing yourself in a crate, which is the multiplayer only escape. Each prison tends to have that perimeter escape like I said, but they also have usually a single player escape and a multiplayer escape that are special. These different escapes are rather good, but the reason the film crew escape is easy here is because I already know the solution. If you don't know the solution, this is near impossible, and honestly I had to look up the solution just to get my head around everything that they wanted me to do. Sadly, that's how you find most of these escapes. You can try to get into the mentality of the person who designed the level, and then look through all the crafting options for any crafting choices that are out of place, meaning they only appear for that specific prison, but that's 1 item, or in this case 4 different crafting choices out of 100. And again, you have to know which ones are already available. And then you have to figure out what those crafting objects mean, where to use them, craft them, and then eventually find the place and get rid of them. Or you can just look them up in the wiki, which is honestly the easier option. There is a phone call system that will allow you to get a hint for it, but at the same time, even there, I didn't know where I was supposed to exit the prison from. The fact is, the special escapes are just not as interesting or exciting as discovering it for yourself if you're going to go the wiki way. The problem is, though, I think most people would have problems discovering them themselves without a little bit of help, and even the phone call isn't enough. So the mailing escape in multiplayer is a good example of some of the problems that can occur. I worked with a team on that one. Of course, I had to play multiplayer, and we couldn't find the mailing label. We knew about it because we actually had looked it up before we started, and we had looked it up multiple times while we were working on it for about a couple of hours. And the thing is, we searched everywhere, but the fact is it was placed in a random desk. It could be one of the inmates' desks, but not always. Instead, it was actually placed in a random desk behind the high security door. It's the worst place that it could have been placed. And I've seen that same label placed, just found on the in one of the inmates' desks, but we got unlucky and it took a 15-minute prison escape and it turned it into a 2-hour marathon session. The easiest way really to get out of any prison is just to break out, go through the perimeter, and in the first prison we'll be able to do it just simply for waiting for the right time and cutting a hole in the fence. I don't show it, but it is possible. Other prisons do make it harder, but ultimately that seems like the best way to do most of it. Still, once you know how to break out of prison, you still have to find the items to break out, and usually some player stats earn just to build the items. For the work crew, for instance, I know where most of the items are located because they're static, but that's the exception for this game. In addition, you have to get the intelligence to craft the right objects and build stats to help you. You'll see me go into the library to do that. The fact is, most of this game uses randomized loot, so the procurement step I mentioned is a big part of the game. You'll see it more on my second run. I mostly need a screwdriver if I go at night, 3 files and 2 rolls of duct tape. I find the screwdriver, 2 files and a roll of duct tape, but then I have to go and buy the rest of the pieces. So the thing is, once you find all that stuff, that's for the easiest escape of the easiest prison in the game. And it took me, knowing what I had to do, about 20 to 30 minutes. That's if you guessed right at what you actually need. Other prisons take a lot more time. Now, you might be able to find the items that you want in desks, and you see me go through this, but usually this involves you making money by doing favors for different groups and doing a job or doing the job for the prison. Personally, the favors are the faster way to go about it, and you can earn a lot more money that way, usually doing it during the job period, and there's no penalty for doing it with favors. So why work like a sucker for the prison? You're already in jail, and the jobs don't give you any real benefit. From there, you earn the money, you'll buy your items from the shops from different inmates, if they're for sale. The first prison does have a lot of shops, but later prisons with less people will make it harder for you to buy items. So they only have certain items for sale. However, that doesn't mean they don't have what you want, but occasionally, they don't tell you when, they rotate the inventory of all the shops, and something you might want will be available. Once you have all the items, you can start your escape. Unfortunately, this is the make or break part of the game. If you do escape, great, you win, you get a little cutscene and you move on to the next scenario, or you can replay this game for a different escape. However, if you're caught or discovered, you lose all your items that are contraband, and usually the rest of your items, and your progress is in the escape is usually repaired, so you start from scratch, and again you have to go and procure your supplies, only this time the easy to get ones aren't there. It's a real pain in the ass when that happens. I even have restarted because it's easier that way. And then, no matter what, assuming you escaped, you start over at the next prison. You should see me start the same prison twice, and you'll see that I have to earn the same stats, the same gear, and the same systems. It's repetition, and this is the main gameplay element. Break out of different prisons by doing almost the same thing in most of them. Now, there are transport missions where you have limited time to break out of a specially designed level. In fact, these are the best experiences. There's a train, a plane, and a boat, and I believe a spaceship level, but I'm not 100% sure if that's a transport level. But there's 2 pieces to the whole game. First off, they feel a lot easier because everything you need will be found in desks. The second is they are usually a bit obvious, as the game gives you heavy hints on how to solve them. They'll tell you where to go. Once you go there, it will say, I need this piece, and so on. That's fine. The thing is, the majority of the prisons in this game are the standardized prison types. It's just those transport are the high point of this game. Each prison is slightly different. The first prison is definitely the easiest, but the prisons start to use electrified fences, keys, key cards more often. I did mention that it was a high security area that needed a key card, and it was the one case that I needed it in the first prison, but in others you have to use key cards to go anywhere interesting. And they just have other ways to keep you from breaking out. Ultimately, every prison, of course, can be broken out of, but the whole game is finding out how or finding out which exploit to use. There's a lot of other pieces in this game that don't fit together here, and I want to go over them. You'll see me duck in and out of rooms and get a check mark on the top right of the screen. You'll see there's a timetable, and I'm being called for breakfast, but it's very loosely defined. As long as I appear in that cantina for breakfast, I get credit for it, so I can go and wander for the rest of the hour, doing anything I want. The same is true for exercise or shower, and you'll see me do that to go back to the library during an exercise routine. However, the worst is the major lineup, the roll call. They make it into this mandatory piece, and you can do the same thing. But what's interesting there is they've gathered all the guards for me, so I don't have a chance of being spotted when I'm trying to escape. It's a really easy time to escape, and the game doesn't enforce that timetable or the roll call or anything else it tries to set up. In addition, sometimes this works against you. Now, there's a time early on a oil rig, I got knocked out by being shot by a sniper, and it took so long for me to reach the medic bay, the roll call was almost over. And at that point, since I didn't appear at the roll call, the game triggered a lockdown and put me in solitary. And then as I left solitary, I didn't get back to my room in time, and another lockdown was started because I didn't know the way to my room. And you get into a cycle where you constantly are thrown into solitary. The thing is, the game is a little bit too open-ended for my taste. If they limited the number of things you could craft in each prison, you could then think about what's available and how it can be used, and it might have been a better experience. But you can see the crafting menu, and there's 100 items at least on it. There's just too many. And which items will help you? There's a number of options that have no purpose, like a manicure kit, and they might be only used for a quest. I don't understand the whole system, or at least why it's so open-ended in the crafting. There's also multiplayer here, and I have to admit, if you have a group of friends to play, that's the best way to play this game. Especially because you'll be laughing, joking about it. However, playing with randos is probably the worst way to play multiplayer, because one group I was with, one guy wouldn't stop screwing around, he kept getting thrown in solitary, he kept trying to break out solo, and that can ruin your whole plan. You need to work as a team. I did find one group that worked very well. The second group that I was in was fun. They were working for the package escape, like I mentioned, and we had to work as a team, and it was really interesting. But the thing is, I don't think you can kick people, and if you get one jackass trying to ruin the experience, you're unable to escape. The game also feels really grindy to me. The favor system and the shops become the major way to get items, and it's just a slog to do it. The same is true with stats. If you need 70 points of intelligence, you're going to have a rather boring minigame for a long time that could have been dropped and still would have been a good game without the stats. Even the quests, sometimes I'll get, the favors, sometimes I'll get a favor that I know is just a pain in the ass. I'll decline it or accept it and then immediately reject it. And then I'll get another favor from another guy that might be easier to do. So it's just playing with these systems. I have other issues I talk about in the written review in the description. Read that for more reasons why I gave this game the final score I reached. But the thing is, the first prison here is actually pretty good. I enjoyed the game at that point, and I beat it all 3 ways. It's a solid experience. The problem for the game, though, is that the second prison wasn't different. Having to look up the special escape and rolling my eyes at how much was required didn't help. The normal breakouts are pretty good, but it feels the same. The real problem, though, is the third prison was the same again. They just added one more piece to it, and there's just more difficulty in the prison, but it doesn't really translate to a better prison or more fun, just more monotony. If you want to do repetition to elongate your games, at least make it more interesting or give you more abilities to do different things. personally, the Escapists take a fun idea and just runs it into the ground for me. And it's a shame because I love the idea of a game about Prison Break. Prison Break, the TV show with Wentworth Miller, is actually really an interesting show, and it really shows how you could do almost a story with the prison breaks. But the Escapist isn't the one I would have wanted or played. Ultimately, I give the Escapist 2 a 2 out of 5. I can't recommend it, and I kind of see why people enjoy it, but personally it's doing the same thing over and over, and that's not what I look for in a game. So ultimately, that's the Escapist 2. So here we go. If you like this video, please leave a like. If you want to see more, consider subscribing. If you are subscribed, click the bell next to the subscribe button to be notified when I post new videos. It'll help you find my content. The full written review is linked in the description, or if you want to see my site, it's located at kinglink-reviews.com. I'm King Link, or as I'm known in jail, Prisoner 24601, and I'll be breaking out of here and showing Valjean what I think of him. Hopefully I'll see you next time on the outside, where we'll have another game with a different type of prison. Conan Exiles is coming up next. Yes, it's part of the Humble Bundle, so I'm giving you a heads up. Will it fare any better?